Pleased to be joined by MMA legend Bas Rutten. Bas, thanks for joining me, mate. We're going to crack on by talking about a mutual friend of ours, Mr. Dave Leduc. He's in action. Sparta, Cyrus Washington rematch. His first time fighting Lethwei in the US. And this is only the second time the US has hosted Lethwei in the main event. This is going to be pretty cool because it's traditional rules, knockout only. For those uninitiated, no gloves, headbutts allowed. How long have you had Lethwei on your radar, and how long have you had Dave on your radar, and why is this special to you, do you think?
I had Lethwei under my radar already when I was living in Holland still. I was just started Thai boxing because we heard from those crazy Burmese boxing. That's what they called it at the time. That's how I got introduced to it. And kind of forgot about it. You know, this is something that you go like, you kind of know this is not going to continue. You know, with the world we live in, you believe that. And then suddenly Dave Leduc came along, you know, and it started getting my attention, and I started watching some fights, and I go, man, this guy's really good. And then I had the pleasure of him visiting me at my gym. He came over with his wife, and we had a workout together, and I was very impressed. Like I'm telling the people, it's the hardest elbows I've ever felt, and I hold pass for a lot of people in my life, but this was a whole different level of elbows that I have felt before, so that was great.
Awesome. And what do you think special about Dave aside from his elbows? He does seem to have a real X factor about him. I think there's a reason he's risen to the top of this sport. There's a reason they call him the king of Lethwei. He has, for me, I always say he looks like he was born to do this sport when you see him compete. What do you think is special about him?
Well, I think the way he puts everything together, you know, like for instance, when you go all the way back, the Dutch would have, first the Dutch got their butts handed by the Thais in Thailand. But then they figured out, wait a minute, they do predominantly kicking. You know, let's do Western boxing, start adding low kicks to it. And then they went back and just start killing the Thais. And suddenly it became good. Now, with Dave also, Lethwei's been there for a long time, but it's all about how you, it's like Thai boxing was. It's been there for centuries, and they still were not doing it. Now they're doing it, but it's because the Dutch came over there. And I think that Lethwei is also a certain style. You fight a certain style, and suddenly Dave comes along, and he just start mixing it up different than other people do. And if you're different than others, you will be successful. That's a line what I constantly say. I actually just posted a video again this Sunday with a left-right uppercut. You see a 1-2, you see the left-right hook, you see one hooks to the body too, but you never see a double uppercut. Why won't you do a double uppercut? It's super effective, and especially a right-left uppercut, maybe with a right hook or a right elbow. You see, because you're different, and that's what Dave is. He's different. He puts it different together than they're used to. And then suddenly, of course, you become effective with it.
How do you feel about the headbutts? Do they intrigue you? Is it something? I mean, you've done all sorts of crazy videos in your time, and you've performed that in different rule sets as well. Do you think the people enjoy the headbutt as well? And how do you feel about it?
You know, if it's done nicely, you know, and with technique, it's very hard to throw a headbutt with technique. But a good person will see the way he throws the headbutt, you know. And if he comes with an elbow and the face is here and suddenly he goes to the side of the head, you see that is very nice, well-placed headbutts. What I also try to say is this, for the people at home, because you go Lethwei, art of 9 limbs with headbutts, bare knuckle, everything. I bet you that if you do a test among these guys, there's less CTE than we have in boxing. And it is purely because it's bare knuckle. You take care of it. You watch out that your hands don't break, because these little tiny bones you don't want to break. You hit a skull, that's it. Your hand is gone. Now you could lose a weapon. You see, so those fighters, most of the time, they work on body shots a lot, you know, and they know exactly where to hit the head. They need to be on the jaw, because if they hit the skull by accident, they're going to break their hand. So that's what I always think. It looks very violent, and it is violent, don't get me wrong. But I think CTE-wise, brain-wise, I think it's actually safer than you have with normal boxing or Thai boxing, because these guys can hit as hard as they want without breaking their hands.
Have you seen that World Lethwei Championship is on UFC Fight Pass? So we've had that, I think, for the last 2 or 3 years now. Then we've got bare knuckle, you know, that only became legalized in Wyoming in the last few years. And now we have this Lethwei happening in Wyoming as well. And then I'm sure other states will follow suit. But does it feel like kind of a special moment in the US where people are ready to embrace this kind of maybe pure striking or maybe more unadulterated rule sets? Do you think people are kind of, it's a moment we're having?
Yeah, it is, you know, because you want to know what happens. That's why bare knuckle boxing is so popular right now. You know, they've suddenly rose to the top. And now we're going to add headbutts to it and elbows and knees. I mean, that's a whole different ball game, you know. So I think people are intrigued in it. And as long as they, you know, superficial wounds you will have, you know, there will be a lot of cutting and you will see that a lot. But I always talk about, are you be able to talk to your family when you get older? I think that is more important than having a freaking face all scarred up. I think the brain, to keep the brain healthy. And, you know, and I truly believe you do keep that brain healthy. And I think people have to overcome that. Once they realize that and they actually start Googling what I just said, they're going to find out that I'm right. And once I'm right, they go like, oh, maybe now we can watch it. It's not a sport that you say, let's let our kids, 10-year-old kids watch it. They're not going to do that. That's karate, full contact karate. I do that, you know, and that's more easy to tell your kids, okay, you can watch this. But if a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old comes and say, Mom, I want to see Lethwei, what is it? Oh, they bare knuckle and they headbutts and elbows. I don't think the parents are going to say, oh yeah, watch that. But I think the adults, they love it.
So Dave's fighting Cyrus Washington. He has a very rich body of work. He's a very well-rounded martial artist. They had a great fight last time out, but Dave looks unbelievably focused here and very hungry because he hasn't competed for a while. So how do you see it going?
You know that I always say it goes both ways, man. It goes both ways. I mean, Cyrus, he's going to be in shape. It was a draw last time, right? If it goes to a decision, it's no decision. It's always a draw, right? That's Lethwei. So and sure, both these guys, they want to win. This is what fighters are, man. We have egos, and we don't like to lose, and we don't like a draw. We don't like to keep it in the hands of the decision of the hands of the judges. We want to finish this fight. So both these guys are going at it. I don't know. I don't know Cyrus Strange Gap. I just know what Dave can do, and I'm just freaking super amazed with Dave and how he put things together. I see these little videos that he's posting. You know, that's a lot of power coming at you. But, you know, needless to say, they already fought each other. So it's going to be a great fight. Of course, I'm going to root for Dave, you know, because I know him. He's a friend. But I always say at the very end, it doesn't really matter. May the best man win next Saturday. And that's it. Because, I've been there. And you lose, you win some. That's what happens.
I saw you say that if Lethwei was more prominent when you were younger, then you would definitely be interested. How do you think you would have done if it was you?
Oh, listen, if you ask me, I will always say that I would have done great, but that's because I have an ego, you know, and I truly believe you need how do you say, a healthy ego. You know, like for instance, they tell me, oh, you're going to fight Fedor Emelianenko. What are you going to do? I say, I'm going to beat him. And then people go, oh, you think you're going to beat him? Well, I think it's a very unhealthy thing to go to a fight thinking that you might lose. I don't think that's the right mindset. You always have to be convinced that you're going to win. That makes it much harder on him to actually get that victory. So, yeah, this is also something, you know, when I saw the UFC for the first time, you know, there was no referee. And they asked me if I wanted to do it. I said, no, I don't want to do it. Why not? I said, because there's idiots out there that knock you out. And while you're knocked out, they jump on top of you and they hit you six, seven more times to the head. That's asking for brain damage. I said, if there would be a referee to pull them off, yeah, I would love to do it. You see, so I'm not that crazy guy who says, oh, I want to die in the cage. Not me. I have a family. I enjoy life very much. And I don't like to die. If I have to tap because it might go really wrong for me, and with tapping, it's a little thing. It's a little different. You know, you can't die pretty much from a choke. Well, they will actually stop the fight. But, you know, I'll tell you this. In my fight when I fought Kevin Redelman, okay, so I knew that the bone through the nose bone to the brain, that was a myth. That was not a real story, right? I knew that. Now, it was like almost like somebody was playing things with me, like a weird game, because the day of the fight or the day before, I don't remember that anymore, somebody told me that I was right, that it was a myth. He said, but if your nose is already broken and then they hit it, then it might go into the brain. Okay, whatever. Now, this is in my head. So I'm in the fight, and he smashes my nose. My nose is flat on the face. I look really bad the first 4 minutes. I mean, he went to town on me. So they stand me up, look at me, and they say, Bas, your nose is broke. What do you want to do? And I look at Big Joe McCarthy. He actually wrote this in his book. I go, do you believe that thing with the nose bone into the brain? And he goes, no. I say, okay, then I'll fight. You know, I just needed a confirmation. If he would have said, yeah, that might happen, I would have not taken the fight. You see, because I'm not that guy. People go like, oh, this guy is crazy. No, I prefer life over death. Trust me, I have a family that I have to take care of as well. So with Lethwei, bringing that back, for sure I would have tried it, 100%, because I know myself. I don't want it because it's very dangerous, but because I don't want it, that's why I do it. That's why I started fighting. That's why all fighters pretty much start fighting. It's a lot of pressure coming at you. but you still want to do it. And then to control everything, and especially after my MMA career, you know, where I became the striker that I always wanted to be. Like, for instance, in Thai boxing in Holland, I always told the people, you know, they want to make shirts of me, like Roots of Fight, these shirts that I have, you know, that a lot of Ali and Tyson and everybody has, is with that company. They came to me a long time ago and they said, hey, we want you as a representing Thai boxing from Holland. I said, no, I don't want that. Why not? I said, that's Peter Ernst, Ramon Dekkers, Ernesto Host, all these guys. I was good. These freaking guys are great. Plus, in fighting, I was really good in the dojo. But being really good in the dojo doesn't mean if you can fight under pressure. And my fights, I was just extremely strong. So I was just blasting people, and that's why I won a lot of fights by knockouts. But also, there were not A-class fights. There were not professional fights. So I always said my striking started day one in Japan. Literally, when I was in that fight, everything cut off. I heard his corner, my corner. I was so in the zone. I saw everything. Every fight you see me in Holland, every picture is an animal face. And there in Japan, it was like there was no more emotion. Everything was flowing. And that's when I became the striker that I was in training. You see, so if I had that skill from straight from Pancras or straight from the UFC, and then without injuries, of course, then going into Lethwei, I believe, I have to believe that I would have done very well. But you know, that is me will always say that. I will never say that I suck because I'm gonna look stupid.